everybody, it's Angie the Coder, and today I'm going to come to you with a video about an ICD-10 guideline that gives some coders difficulty, but it shouldn't because it's really not that hard as long as you have the right resources, which I'm going to make sure you have. Make sure you have all you need to do a great job of ICD-10 coding causal relationships, specifically the relationship between hypertension and heart disease, congestive heart failure, and chronic kidney disease. The aging population that we have now has you'll see a lot of patients that have hypertension and at least one of these problems. And it should be very easy for us to code these. We should do a really good job because, like I said, we're going to see a lot of patients with these combinations. And the good news is if we go out to our 2020 ICD-10 guidelines, we'll have all the information we need so that we can do a really good job with this. In case you're wondering where I got these guidelines, I got them at the link below at the very bottom. You can get them there. You can get them if you open the front of your code book. They should be in the front of your code book every year. Like I said, this is the 2020 version. It was probably the same in 2019. These guidelines have been in play for a while, but always look at your most current guidelines to make sure you're doing things as accurately as possible. But you don't even have to write down this link at the bottom. If you want to go to that link, all you have to do is go out to the description underneath this video and click on the link that I'll leave there for you, and it'll take you straight there. So there you're a couple places where you can find these guidelines for yourself. I think that's the important thing of being a good coder, is always having the right tools at your fingertips. So if you'll read this, it says that for hypertension, that we can presume a causal relationship between hypertension and heart involvement, or between hypertension and kidney involvement, because those two conditions are linked in the alphabetical index with the term with. And that the only time that we would not consider this a causal relationship, the only time we wouldn't assume, is if the provider specifically documented that, say, the chronic kidney disease was not caused by the hypertension, or that the, say, congestive heart failure or whatever was not caused by the hypertension. Provider has to document that one does not cause the other in order for you to code it differently. If you see these codes together, you are to assume, unless he documents that they are not cause and effect or causal relationship. All right, let's just hop on in, and we're going to start with hypertension when a patient has hypertension and heart involvement. So normally you would have hypertension be coded as I-10, right? Well, whenever a patient has certain types of heart disease and hypertension at the same time, that's not how we code it. We would code the combination of these two diseases as I-11.9. Let me illustrate this for you by going out and looking at a sample patient. So patient number 1 is a patient who has essential hypertension stable, and they also have cardiac hypertrophy, or you might have heard of it as cardiomegaly. There's a couple of names for it, but this is the scenario. So what we would normally do is if the patient had hypertension without the hypertrophy, we would normally diagnose at I-10, but the hypertrophy we would normally code I-51.7. So what we're going to do now is you're going to pause this video, you're going to grab your ICD-10 book, you're going to come back and restart the video, or start the video from here. Sorry, you don't have to go to the beginning, that would be boring. Anyway, restart the video and we will code this case very quickly together. Okay, so here we are at our book, so we're going to flip it over to the hypertension. So you're just going to look in your index, and I kind of cheated a little bit because I didn't want this to take it forever, and I already flipped over here where hypertension is. Find hypertension. There it is, hypertension. Yes, yes, yes. And then you're going to go, if you look right there where it says heart involvement, it'll tell you to see hypertension heart. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go all the way down here. This makes me dizzy just looking at it. And go to hypertension heart. And it tells you to go to 11.9. So let's go to 11.9 really quick. So here we are. I I11.9 right there. It says hypertensive heart disease without heart failure. That's the code we use. Okay, so as we found when we were looking in the ICD-10 book, we would not code this I-10 for the hypertension, and we would not code the I-51.7 for the hypertrophy. Instead, all we would code is the I-11.9 because no secondary code is required. As we saw in the book, there was no code, there was no comment underneath I-11.9 that said code also the type of heart involvement. There was nothing like that. So since there was not an instruction for us to do so, we don't have to put a secondary diagnosis on this particular combination. So for your patient with essential hypertension and cardiac hypertrophy, you would code that as simply I-11.9. But what if the patient has hypertension and heart failure? So what you would code instead of I-10 for the hypertension, you would code I-11, and then you would have a secondary code from the I-50 family. So let's take a look at an example. Patient 2 has hypertension, essential hypertension stable. I-10 is what we would normally code that, but they also have an unspecified congestive heart failure, which we would normally code with I-50.9. So open up your code books and let's code this one together. Okay, so we're back in our code book in the index and we're under hypertension. And if you zoom in a little bit, you'll see with heart failure. And it says CI 11.0. I think earlier in the video I said I11, but it's I11.0. So we're going to go there next. Let's flip to I11.0. Okay, so here we are at I11.0, and notice right there, it says hypertensive heart disease with heart failure. It says use additional code to identify heart failure. So this tells me we're going to use two codes. We're going to use I11.0, and then we're going to use a code from the I50 section. So let's go to the I50 section too while we're at it, while we're in here. Alrighty, so we're in the I50 section. Whoa, awesome. We're in heart failure, and I'm just going to tell you, because I've already looked this up, that we'll be doing right there, congestive heart failure, not otherwise specified. It's I50.9, and that is how we code that. Okay, as we saw from looking in the code book, I10 would not be used in this scenario. Instead, we'd use I11.0, and we would still have a secondary diagnosis code I50.9. And the reason why we have that is because there is a note under I11.0 that says code also type of congestive heart failure. So we are required to have a secondary code. But what if the patient had hypertension with kidney disease or kidney involvement? And we're specifically talking about chronic kidney disease. If the patient had hypertension with kidney disease, we would be instructed to code either I12.0 or I12.9, depending on the type of kidney disease, and we'll see that when we code an example. So there are two options, I12.0 or I12.9, and you would have a secondary code to describe the stage of the chronic kidney disease. So let's do an example. Patient 3. So for patient 3 has essential hypertension, which we would normally code as I10, but then they also have chronic kidney disease stage 2, which we would code as N18.2 normally, right? So let's grab our code books and start coding this. Okay, so we're back in our code book and we're back in the index, and we go to hypertension and find kidney, and it says right there, hypertension with kidney I12.9, and if you look in there, it says if it's stage 5 or end stage renal, you'll use I12.0, but if it's stage 1 through stage 4, we will use I-12.9. Well, our scenario was for stage 1 through stage 4. So let's go to I-12.9. 12. There we go. I-12.9, hypertensive chronic kidney disease, stage 1 through 4. And it says also use additional code to identify the stage of chronic kidney disease. And it gives you those codes in 18.1 through N18.4 and N18.9. Okay, as we discovered as we were coding this, I-10 would be the wrong code for this. The right code for this would be I-12.9, and we would still need our secondary code N18.2 because the code book instructs us to indicate what stage of chronic kidney disease the patient had using one of the N codes. So that's why we would need that. All right, but what if we had a combination of 3 things, hypertension with heart failure and kidney disease? Well, if we had that going on, we would be using a code from the I-13 series to indicate the hypertensive part, and then we would need our I-50 code for the heart failure and our N18 code for the kidney disease. Well, let's see what that looks like. So for patient number 4, we have essential hypertension. We have, which we would normally code as I-10. Then we have our congestive heart failure that's not specified, which we would code as I-50.9. And in this case, we have a patient who has chronic kidney disease stage 5, and that would be N18.5. But we know that I-10 is the wrong code, so let's go out there to our code books and see how we really should code this. Okay, so we're back in the index, and we're under hypertension, and we're going to go down to where it says cardiorenal disease, right there. Now notice it says cardiorenal disease with heart failure, and it gives you the different stages. Our patient has stage 5, so we're going to go with cardiorenal disease with stage 5, which is I-13.2. So we're going to flip over there and take a look at that. All right, here we are, I-13.2. Hypertensive heart and chronic kidney disease with heart failure and stage 5 or end-stage renal chronic kidney disease. We have stage 5, so we're in the right code, and it says use additional code to identify the type of heart failure, so we got to do that. Our heart failure is I-50.9, and then we want to use additional code to identify the stage of chronic kidney disease. Ours is N18.5 for stage 5. Yay! The correct code is I-13.2 to indicate that the patient has hypertensive chronic kidney disease with heart failure. So they have all 3 things. And then we are instructed to indicate what type of congestive heart failure, and we are also instructed to give what stage of kidney disease. So that's why we have 3 codes here and not just the 1. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps up this video all about ICD-10 coding. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your views, and I hope you learned something today. If you did learn something today, how about giving us a thumbs up? Yay! I really appreciate when you do that. Also, if you'll subscribe to the channel, this is a good way to join the tribe. So just hit the red subscribe button to subscribe. This week, I'd like to ask you a question, and that is, what do you prefer, ICD-10 coding or CPT coding? Put your answers in the comments field below. It'll be a chance for us all to get to know each other just a little bit better in our tribe. And if you have any other questions, comments, or suggestions for videos, you can put those in the comment field down there below. That's what that's for. Don't forget that I put all the descriptions all the links for my videos in the description below, so you can find the information that you need down there. And also don't forget that you can always email me at Angie at angiethecoder.com. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you guys had a great week, and happy coding, and I'll see you on the next video.